Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer did not look like a monster. He didn't hide in shadows. He didn't stalk dark alleys wearing masks or gloves. He lived in plain sight, quiet, awkward, unremarkable. A man who smiled politely, avoided eye contact, and blended effortlessly into society. For over a decade, he killed repeatedly. He murdered at least 17 young men and boys, though many believe the real number may be higher. He dismembered bodies, kept skulls as trophies, photographed his victims in death, and committed acts so disturbing that even hardened investigators struggled to process what they were seeing. Yet neighbors described him as polite. Co-workers called him strange, but harmless. Police officers, multiple times, handed victims back to him. This is the story of Jeffrey Dahmer. Not just what he did, but how he was able to do it, why he wasn't stopped, and how evil hid in plain sight for years. You're watching CrimeHQ, where we break down real crime stories with depth and accuracy. Subscribe for new true crime documentaries every week. Now let's dive deep. Jeffrey Dahmer was born on May 21st, 1960, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to Lionel and Joyce Dahmer. From the outside, the Dahmer family looked normal, middle-class, educated, stable. Lionel was a chemist. Joyce was intelligent but emotionally fragile, struggling with depression and anxiety. But the home was far from peaceful. Jeffrey grew up surrounded by constant arguments, emotional distance, and instability. His mother was often bedridden by illness or mental distress. His father worked long hours. Jeffrey, an only child for several years, learned early how to be alone. Teachers noticed something odd about him. He was withdrawn, quiet, emotionless. He rarely spoke unless spoken to. He showed little reaction to praise or punishment. By age 4, Jeffrey underwent surgery for a double hernia, after which his behavior changed noticeably. Some later speculated the trauma of hospitalization affected him psychologically, though no definitive medical link was ever proven. What was undeniable was his growing obsession with dead animals. In acid, he didn't do this out of malice, but fascination. His father, a chemist, once showed him how to bleach animal bones. That moment, seemingly innocent, would later haunt Lionel Dahmer for the rest of his life. Jeffrey was not violent toward animals, but he was obsessed with their insides, with what remained when life was gone. At school, he was bullied and isolated. As he entered adolescence, he realized he was gay, something he deeply struggled to accept in the conservative Midwest of the 1970s. He had intense sexual fantasies, but no emotional connection to people. As a child, Jeffrey Dahmer was drawn to roadkill. While other children recoiled in disgust, Jeffrey was curious. He collected dead animals. He dissected them. He dissolved bones. More disturbing still, those fantasies became linked to control, unconsciousness, and possession. He didn't want love. He didn't want rejection. He wanted someone who could never leave. By his teenage years, Jeffrey Dahmer had become a heavy drinker. He brought alcohol to school. He drank before classes. He drank to silence his thoughts. Classmates remembered him as the weird kid, known for bizarre pranks, strange noises, and emotional emptiness. But few suspected what was growing inside him. His parents divorced shortly before his graduation in 1978. Jeffrey was left alone in the family home, unsupervised, isolated, and deeply unstable. That summer, everything changed. On June 18, 1978, just weeks after graduating high school, Jeffrey Dahmer picked up a hitchhiker named Stephen Hicks, age 18. Stephen was on his way to a concert. Jeffrey invited him back to his house to drink. As the night went on, Stephen tried to leave. Jeffrey panicked. In his own later words, he felt overwhelming fear of abandonment. He struck Stephen with a dumbbell. Then he strangled him. Stephen Hicks became Jeffrey Dahmer's first victim. After the murder, Jeffrey dismembered the body, placed the remains in garbage bags, and buried them behind the house. Later, he dug them up, crushed the bones with a sledgehammer, and scattered them in the woods. No one noticed. No one suspected. Jeffrey Dahmer had crossed a line and discovered something terrifying. Killing made his fantasies real. After the first murder, Dahmer did not kill again for nearly 9 years. But his life did not improve. He dropped out of college. He failed the military. He was arrested for indecent exposure. He drifted from place to place, drinking constantly. But the fantasies never left. They grew stronger. By the late 1980s, living in Milwaukee, Dahmer began frequenting gay bars and bathhouses, places where anonymity was normal and disappearances often went unnoticed. This time, he would not make the same mistake. Jeffrey Dahmer developed a method. He would meet young men, often minorities, runaways, or vulnerable individuals, and invite them back to his apartment. He offered money for photos. He offered drinks. He offered companionship. Once inside, he drugged them. When they lost consciousness, Dahmer strangled them. But death was not always his goal. He wanted control without resistance. He experimented with drilling holes into victims' skulls and injecting acid into their brains, attempting to create living zombies. None survived. After death, Dahmer engaged in necrophilia, dismemberment, and cannibalism. He kept skulls. He saved body parts. He photographed everything. And still, no one stopped him. In 1991, a 14-year-old boy named Konorak Sinthasomphon escaped Dahmer's apartment, naked, bleeding, disoriented. 3 women called the police. When officers arrived, Dahmer calmly explained the boy was his boyfriend, drunk after an argument. Despite protest from witnesses, the police returned the child to Dahmer. The officers laughed about it afterward. Minutes later, Dahmer murdered the boy. Those officers were later fired, but only after public outrage. By then, it was far too late. On July 22, 1991, one intended victim escaped and led police back to Dahmer's apartment. What they found was beyond imagination. Polaroid photos of dismembered bodies, human heads in the refrigerator, a blue barrel filled with acid and remains, skulls on shelves. Jeffrey Dahmer was arrested without resistance. He confessed to 17 murders. He showed no emotion. Dahmer pleaded guilty but insane. Psychiatrists diagnosed him with multiple disorders, but ruled he knew right from wrong. He was sentenced to 15 life terms, totaling over 900 years. In prison, Dahmer claimed to find religion. Some believed him, others did not. On November 28, 1994, Jeffrey Dahmer was beaten to death by a fellow inmate. He was 34 years old. No funeral, no memorial, no forgiveness. But his story remains, not just as a tale of horror, but as a warning. About ignored warning signs, about systemic failure, about how monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they live next door. Jeffrey Dahmer was not born a killer, but he became one, through isolation, unchecked fantasies, institutional failure, and silence. The question is not just how he killed. The real question is, how many chances were missed to stop him? If you enjoy deep, well-researched true crime stories told with respect for the victims, make sure you're subscribed, because this channel dives deep into cases most people never hear about.